Courts are playing an active role in ensuring that the issues relating to climate change and climate justice are effectively examined, and they are also passing the judgments to ensure climate justice. But unless these judgments are effectively translated into practice or they are effectively implemented, there will be judgments only on paper. And for implementing these judgments, we need the resources. And this is where the finance comes in. So climate finance is then a connected, important issue. And for three purposes, the climate finance is needed. First is to finance the mitigation measures. That means to have green energy, clean transport, so that the emission of the greenhouse gases is reduced. Then second is adaptation measures, finance the adaptation measures. It is for coping up the effect of climate change which has taken place. Like have the crops which are drought resistant, or have the warning systems. When the flood comes, you can protect yourself. And the third is the finance for loss and damage. If the climate change has shown its effect, the loss is caused, damage is caused, for restorative measures, you need the finance. So for all these purposes, climate finance is required, and because these South countries, these developing countries, they are the victim of this. Therefore, what we say that climate finance is it's not a charity. It's a part of the duty of those countries who have developed over time by industrializing themselves, by emitting the greenhouse gases. Therefore, all this climate finance that centers around the principle of CBDR, that is the common but differentiated responsibility. Everybody has common responsibility for protecting the nature, the climate. But the proportion of responsibility is not the same, it's differentiated. That means those who have caused the global warming more, those who have contributed to the global warming more, their responsibility is more. And those who have contributed less, their responsibility is less. So developed countries who have built their economy over a time by contributing to the global warming, their responsibility is more. And the less developed countries, the developing countries, those who have they have minimal contribution in the global warming, their responsibility is less. Look at those island people, they are living at the remote areas, they have not contributed to the global warming or the climate change, but yet they are facing the effect of the adverse effect of the climate changes. Their land is disappearing on account of the rising sea level. Or look at those whose properties are swept away in the flash floods. They did not contribute to the climate change. Therefore, the responsibility should be borne by those who contributed it, and it's their duty to take care of or to finance those who have become the victim now. But the reality is quite sobering. The decisions are taken, the targets are set for financing the adverse effect of the climate change, but the contributions are very less. The UNEP Adaptation Gap Report warns that present finance is 10 to 18 times below what is required. In COP27, Loss and Damage Fund was created, and in COP28, it was operationalized. But contribution to this fund is very less. International level, though there is an attempt, but the success is not much. But yes, there is a positive movement. At the national level also, the efforts are being made, like we have PM Kusum Yojana, where the farmers are extended subsidy for green fuel like solar power and switching from diesel or coal for the purposes of pumping, for the irrigation purposes and other purposes. The subsidy is provided to them and it's proving to be effective. Like in Bangladesh, because of the early warning system for the floods, number of lives have been saved. But these countries, developed countries who have that now technology, who have now the resources, they are required to come forward. They are required to contribute. They are required to extend the help to those countries. They are required to do, in fact, justice, climate justice to those who have become victims. But there are difficulties, though the funds are created, but there are barriers. There are barriers of unequal distribution. There are barriers of delay. There are barriers in respect of the means which have been adopted. Then the question comes up, what's the solution? So first thing is that the contribution, the funds relating to the climate compensation, they are required to be strengthened, raised, more and more contribution is required to be made. Then every possible tool must be utilized, like carbon market or green bonds or debt for climate swaps or nature-based solution. Whatever is possible for this purpose that is required to be explored, acted upon, and maximum possible efforts are required to be put to ensure that the countries which need it and the globe or world in aggregate which needs the efforts to ensure that the global temperature is kept. The target is 1.5 degree below, capping it 1.5 degree below the pre-industrial area. That should be achieved. And in this process, the lawyers, the law, the courts, they all have a very important role to play. So with this, the final question that comes in, can we afford at this stage to wait and not to act? If we don't act now, not only this generation will suffer, but we will leave the planet for the next generation in such a condition that the next generation will also suffer. So we all must, all the panelists, we have eminent panelists in this panel, and I'm hopeful all these questions they will be reflecting upon so that some solution is found and it conveyed to those who are responsible for taking the action. Thank you very much. Now, I'll make a request to Mr. Shyam Devan, the senior advocate, to reflect upon the topic of the session.
Thank you very much, Justice Prakash Srivastav, Honorable Chairman of the National Green Tribunal, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that my start time at 1:18 is 3 minutes after this session was to end. So I'll be very brief and quick and try and stick to the script. My presentation is in 3 parts, broadly. First, I want to suggest a framework. Second, I want to talk about a case which is still going on in the Supreme Court, which was mentioned by Justice Srivastav, and which has a sort of interesting twist in that it's the sort of case which might not come up in too many other jurisdictions. And finally, if I have a little time left, I will just give you, share a development in terms of what's happening in the BRICS space. So moving to the framework part, I'm suggesting a framework of 2 SDG goals. There's SDG, which is the Sustainable Development Goal adopted by all the states of the United Nations in 2015. And SDG 13 is essentially to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. And this is a goal we are to achieve by 2030. This is in the context, as we heard, of keeping global temperatures down to 1.5 degree Celsius below the green industrial levels. And 2024, let's remind ourselves, was the hottest year on record. The other one is Sustainable Development Goal 16. SDG 16 is focused on promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, to provide access to justice for all, and to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. A combined reading of both these goals suggests that we have not very much time, just 5 years left, for the purposes of achieving and attaining, building stronger institutions, and putting in place structures which increase access to justice and which enable communities to really benefit from adaptation insofar as our goals are concerned. And here I want to just mention the other bookend, so to speak, as far as our analysis is concerned. This is the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, which Justice Srivastava mentioned, rendered last month. The opinion, adopted unanimously, emphasized the role of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in providing the best available science. In many parts of the world, or at least in some parts of the world, science itself is under assault. The advisory opinion recalls that the environment is the foundation for human life, and the obligation of states to protect human rights extends to ensuring that we work urgently to limit greenhouse gas emissions. So here again, you have a crossover between the human rights space and the space with regard to protection of the environment. The case, you will recall, was triggered by a specific group of young students who were championed by the government of Vanuatu, with contributions made before the court from several nations. And I read one passage from the judgment which I found as an important call to those in this room, because it mentions the law. So turning to the advisory opinion, para 456, a complete solution to this daunting and self-inflicted problem requires the contribution of all fields of human knowledge, whether law, science, economics, or any other. Above all, a lasting and satisfactory solution requires human will and wisdom at the individual, social, and political levels to change our habits, comforts, and current way of life in order to secure a future for ourselves and those who are yet to come. What can we do as lawyers and bar associations within this space? May I share with you in advance an initiative by Law Asia. Next month, Law Asia, the Law Association for the Asia-Pacific region, will release the Law Asia Manual on International Right to Remedy. This compendium of remedies available beyond local jurisdictions has a chapter dedicated to environmental rights. The purpose of this manual is an effort to build on the sustainable development goals I mentioned and to provide access to justice and inclusive institutions. The manual points readers in the direction of various international fora and that lawyers and bar associations can access, much as the students of Vanuatu. So this will be distributed and released to all of you shortly. I urge that you distribute and disseminate this very widely, or as widely as possible, so that it gains traction. I'll now turn to the case which I mentioned. It was mentioned by Justice Srivastava as well. It goes by the short form of the Great Indian Bustard case. I pronounced that correctly. It's a magnificent bird, the Great Indian Bustard. It's the heaviest bird on the planet which is capable of flight. And this is an ongoing case in the Supreme Court of India, which pits, and I'll indicate that to you, but we have already 2 judgments on the point, and there is a third which is about to be passed after a hearing which will be held next month. Now, what's the problem? So the petitioner, including M.K. Ranjitsi, who's petitioned the Supreme Court in the public interest, he's a wildlife enthusiast, and he said that, look, the number of Great Indian bustards has come down below 100 in number, and this species is on the brink of extinction. So the Supreme Court was very concerned, and it issued directions for the purposes of ensuring that the bustard is protected. And one of the big problems which the bustard faces is that despite millions of years of evolution, it has very poor frontal vision, and it collides with overhead power lines. And we noticed, and the scientists noticed, that there were a huge number of bustard casualties because of collision. So the petitioners argued that, look, let's get these overhead underlines underground. Now that seemed to be a good solution, an expensive solution, but there was a huge pushback. And this is where the climate part comes in. The Great Indian Bustard's habitat is essentially in western India in the states of Rajasthan and Gujarat. And this is also a fantastic area for the purposes of solar power generation. So India has these climate goals in terms of renewable energy and solar power. And those solar power generators and transmission companies said that put your Great Indian Bustard aside, we need overhead transmission lines to evacuate all this power. So that's the contestation which is going on. On the one hand, there is a species extinction issue. On the other hand is this huge lobby of generating companies and transmission companies saying that we want to save costs. So the petitioners, and I represent the petitioners in that case, which is essentially the bird, but also the activists, are canvassing a position saying that these costs must be internalized by the companies themselves. And here I should just share with you that we have a specific provision in the Indian Companies Act, which might be a little new for some jurisdictions. Section 166 says that a director of a company shall act in good faith in order to promote the objects of the company for the benefit of its members as a whole and in the benefit of the interest of the company, its employees, the shareholders, and, now this is the interesting part, the community and for protection of the environment. So our Companies Act requires every company director to actually act in good faith, not only for the benefit of the company and the shareholders, but also for the benefit of the community and for the protection of the environment. So this is really a step forward. I have something to add to just a footnote to the concept of dharma. You recall yesterday, 3 of our justices from the Supreme Court, Justice Maheshwari, Justice N. Koteshwar Singh, and Justice V. Ramasubramanian, in their respective addresses, spoke of dharma and its various dimensions. Justice, of course, is part of it. Duty is part of it. And so I thought I'd just point out 2 elements of the Indian Constitution which really elevate environmental sensitivity to dharma. And one is Article 48A, which is directive principle. It's in our Constitution, and I quote it: "The state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and safeguard the forests and wildlife of the country." So it's up there in the Constitution. But that's not all. There's also a duty on the citizens under Article 51A, which requires that it's the duty of every citizen to protect and improve the national environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife. And this next bit is very interesting. I don't know how many constitutions adopt this standard. Duty of every citizen to have compassion for living creatures. So that's a really special flourish in the Indian Constitution. My time, I'm sure, is running out. So the little tidbit which I will share is something fresh out of the oven. It's regarding the 17th BRICS Summit, which took place in Rio in last month. BRICS today, as many of you know, it includes not only Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, but it has expanded to include Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and the United Arab Emirates. The Rio summit was significant because BRICS leaders signaled an ambition that if the Western world cannot deliver on climate justice, then the global South must step up and lead. The leaders endorsed a new framework on climate finance and demanded the progress on a $1.3 trillion Baku to Belém roadmap and backed Brazil's Tropical Forests Forever facility, a blended finance mechanism aimed at conserving tropical forests. So beyond finance, the summit also highlighted BRICS' growing role in the clean energy transition. So these are some ideas and food for thought. I must end by requesting all of you, because I notice there are a number of visitors to Delhi after this convention, not quite during it, but please spend your time looking at many of the treasures and joys which Delhi has to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shyam Devan, for deeply reflecting upon the M.K. Ranjit Singh's judgment and the two SDG goals, and also on the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, which has been rendered in July 2025 itself. Now I'll make a request to Professor Dr. George to reflect upon the issue.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear panelists, thank you very much to the Indian Bar Association for having me and the International Bar Association participating in the second Convention of the Rule of Law here in New Delhi. It's a great pleasure to present what the IBA and therefore us as legal community did contribute and can contribute, and just to connect to your introduction, but also to the statements of Mr. Devan. Before I start, let me connect it a little bit. I liked very much the question of duty and equity that was mentioned. And I think we should stop to talk about the global north, the global south, especially with respect to the climate change. This is, as you pointed out, a challenge for humanity and for mankind. And it is true that, for example, the global north started 100 years ago or even more to industrialize. At that time, probably the consciousness of what this will mean for the planet was not as extensively researched as it is now. Therefore, the obligation obviously is there, and I'm proud to say that Germany, where I'm from, is, I think, on the forerun, not to only take upon its shoulders part of the responsibilities, but also in research and technology. On the other hand, also the developing countries, and in the BRICS circumstances, there are some countries, I believe, who are very well technology advanced, and India is one of them, have the obligation to, I think, develop now in a way that they start not to do the same mistakes we did maybe 100, 150 years ago, but to start with fresh technology and green technology, like was now outlined with solar panels in India and many other leading technologies that come. So I think together we can achieve this. If we wait for each other, I think we will fail. Now, not everybody might be acquainted with our International Bar Association. As you know, we are the global voice of the legal profession. Why do we claim this? Because 190 national bar associations of 170 countries are members of the international bar associations, besides over 300, 350 international big law firms, also many from India and other countries from the regions are members, and 80 to 100,000 individual lawyers. So who doesn't know it, please check out, because each of you can be a member of an IBA and exchange ideas. Now, the IBA, being this global voice of the legal profession, took on the responsibility in climate change issues very, very early. In 2012, we were challenged by Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland and United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, to look at this issue, because she pointed out that climate change is an environmental law issue, but especially human rights issue. As pointed out by my speakers before, the most vulnerable are really hit most, and therefore we looked at it. What did the IBA do since then? We created a task force that published a landmark report already in 2013, which was called Achieving Justice and Human Rights in an Era of Climate Disruption. Not only did this report recognize that climate change is a defining challenge, but also that these climate change effects give rise to fundamental justice concerns, undermining the enjoyment of human rights and underlining the existing inequalities and poverty and conflict. Therefore, the report lined out for international and regional domestic legal frameworks to have a look at it, to address the issue, and suggested some reforms. Now, 10 years, almost 15 years later, we can be very proud, because the United Nations in 2022 recognized that the considerations we outlined in that report of clean and healthy and sustainable environment is a human right, which was also repeated by court decisions later on. Above that, we also recommended standards for cooperating reporting on greenhouse gas emissions and human rights into legal frameworks. And I'm sure that you see this also in financing, because many of the central banks and other institutions started to look at instruments, and as far as I understand, the Central Bank of India right now also tries to generate here some tools which can be used. Much moreover, the report also recognized the importance of the international courts to address this issue, which now, as we saw in July, was done on the highest level possible. Now, what we also did and what we continuously do is to emphasize the responsibility of us lawyers. Each of us in its daily work can take the environment impact actions have of our clients, of ourselves in consideration. And your quote from the Constitution, but also from the corporate law, is very inspiring, because it underlines not only the duties of our clients to reflect upon their doings, but also indicates that we lawyers should advise beyond maybe only the legal framework, on one hand our clients, of their ethical and general responsibility, but also as bar associations try to be an active part in discussing with the regulator, with the lawmakers about passing laws that support the fight against climate change. So therefore, the IBA started to set up various initiatives. We have a task force, as I mentioned before. We have urged already in 2020 domestic bars around the world to set up committees and working groups to address it for their members and within their regulatory framework for executing the profession. And we see that bars respond, that they are much more active in developing domestic and international climate laws, and that they really enter in consultation processes outlined by their governments and international institutions to be part of it. Recently, we also launched a climate registry. That is a web-based structure whereby committees can exchange and upload, but also download best practices, and therefore I would urge you to have a look. We brought further 72 representatives of 50 bars together who implemented climate initiatives in their jurisdictions to share their visions. And we are currently setting up a climate change working group whose activities will support climate legal education and capacity building. Because we know that also bars struggle sometimes to address this issue due to the lack of resources. Now, John Kerry stated, and it's a bit underlining what we talk about here in this conference and also today in this session. In 2021, he was a special envoy for climate issues under Biden in 2021 to the American Bar Association's General Assembly. He said, "You are all climate lawyers now." And I think this underscores once more the importance of our profession. But we don't stand as IBA only next to the legal profession. We also are involved in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change process, therefore representing there the legal community and our point of view and your point of view about this urgent matter, and we invite everybody to contribute and to help us to bring forward also the interests and ideas that are grown in your spaces and in your regions. Now, before I close, give me two observations. After 10 years of IBA work and lawyers work very intensively on these issues. One is, it's probably only the starting, because consciousness has been changed in societies. Our children, I think they force us, they ask the right questions, and we ourselves look at our big cars, at our consumption, and ask ourselves, is that really the way forward? But it's only the beginning, because nature's effects will take probably its toll down the road, not immediately. Now, the Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, just reiterated last month this issue. He said, and I quote, "The climate crisis is not just an environmental emergency, it's a human rights catastrophe. The poor, vulnerable, and marginalized suffer most. Environmental defenders are threatened or killed. Land and livelihoods are plundered for minerals critical to clean energy, and climate finance remains inadequate, subsidizing probably the wrong fossil fuel issues." And I think, quote ends here, I think it's clear that we as legal community have and can do something about it. But it starts with each of us. We really should look, when we come back home, at our consumption. Do we need 10 computers in our houses? Do we need to travel every time with an airplane? Those questions are small questions, but they all contribute. And I must admit, I'm not the best example because I travel a lot. It's important that we meet in circumstances like this. But let's start with our children, let's start with ourselves, and let's not look away. Many times somebody in front of us throws a plastic bottle in the bushes. Maybe we should kindly remind him that he lost something. Maybe the neighbor is burning something in his garden. Maybe we can suggest to bring it to a recycling pit. I know it's in developing countries much more difficult because this has not been changed as much as it probably changed in the West. But I think each and every communication, each and every discussion we have individually really helps to achieve this. And as lawyers, let's really work on those frameworks. Let's not make any differences between north, south, east, west. This globe is round. All the climate goes around the globe, and we should do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. George, for drawing a balance between the responsibility of all towards the climate justice and also the initiatives which have been taken in this direction. Now I'll request Mrs. Shine to please come to the podium and express her views.
Bonjour. Namasté. Je vais parler en français. Et Sachkri va m'aider pour transcrire pour vous. Explique.
Bonjour, namaste. I will speak in French and Sakshi will translate this for me.
Je remercie le barreau de l'Inde pour cette opportunité
I thank the Bar Association of India for this opportunity
parce que cette conférence me permet non seulement de profiter de plusieurs discussions scientifiques, mais c'était aussi pour moi une occasion de découvrir l'Inde.
because it did not just provide me the opportunity to learn about so many scientific things, but also gave me an opportunity to discover India.
Alors, par rapport au sujet, ma contribution va se tabler sur, spécifiquement sur la République démocratique du Congo.
And regarding the subject, my presentation will be focused on the Democratic Republic of Congo.
De manière générale, on sait tous que l'Afrique est en train de subir une injustice historique en ce qui concerne le changement climatique.
Generally, we all know that Africa is facing a historic injustice of climate change.
J'ai dit injustice parce que l'Afrique émet pratiquement moins de 4% d'émissions de gaz d'effet de serre.
I say injustice because Africa emits only 4% of global emission of greenhouse gases.
Mais par rapport à ça, c'est elle qui est en train de subir plusieurs conséquences et entrer au changement climatique.
But despite this, they are the ones who face the harsh consequences of climate change.
Si j'ai décidé de m'appesantir sur la République démocratique du Congo, c'est parce que j'estime qu'elle illustre parfaitement les défis mondiaux de la justice climatique.
Here, I have decided to speak on the DRC because I feel that it is the best representation, it is a perfect representation of a solution country to climate change.
Aujourd'hui, la République démocratique du Congo est appelée pays solution. Solution parce qu'à cause de ces forêts, de ces immenses ressources naturelles, de ces minéraux.
Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo presents itself as the solution-based model or the solution country, thanks to its vast reserves of natural resources, especially its tropical forests, and vast deposits of essential minerals for the green transition.
Il est vrai que la République démocratique du Congo possède plusieurs atouts qui permettent de lutter contre le changement climatique.
It's true that the Democratic Republic of Congo possesses many tools, advantages which help in climate change.
Ce pays a un important patrimoine forestier, surtout avec les tourbières.
It has tropical forests and especially the peatlands which act as the patrimoine of the country, as the national heritage.
C'est pourquoi la préservation de ces patrimoines, de ces ressources naturelles est très importante pour la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique.
And it is for this reason that the preservation of these natural resources is crucial for fighting against global warming.
Mais contrairement au fait que la République démocratique du Congo contribue énormément, on se rend compte qu'en ce qui concerne le soutien financier, il y a un véritable problème par rapport à ça.
And given the fact that it contributes so much, the main problem rests that it is in a lack of fundings.
Aujourd'hui, par rapport à la justice climatique, la République démocratique du Congo possède plus ou moins 60% des forêts tropicales africaines.
Today, DRC is at the center of all debates on climate justice as it possesses 60% of the tropical forest lands in Congo.
Pourtant, la population est en train de vivre de graves changements climatiques.
Despite this, the Congolese population is living in, they are the first victims of climate change.
Il y a des inondations, la déforestation, pour ne citer que cela.
There are floods and deforestations.
Alors que le pays n'est responsable que d'une petite, infime partie des émissions des gaz mondiales.
While the country emits an infinitely small percentage of global emissions.
La République démocratique du Congo absorbe beaucoup de carbone alors qu'elle n'en émet presque pas.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is a country which absorbs more carbon than it actually emits.
Et une étude de la Banque mondiale soutient qu'en principe, en termes de carbone, si le Congo pouvait vendre son carbone, on pouvait s'attendre à obtenir entre 223 ou 398 milliards de dollars par an.
According to a study of the World Bank, the forests of DRC value between $223 billion and $398 billion due to their capacity of absorbing carbon and providing ecological services.
Je vous ai dit tout à l'heure qu'il y avait des inondations par rapport au changement climatique et il faut savoir que ces inondations ont un impact réel sur la sécurité alimentaire en République démocratique du Congo.
I just told you about the floods that occur in these regions in DRC, and these floods are a great threat to the food insecurity in the nation.
Parce que la population congolaise est à 70% une population qui vit de l'agriculture.
Because the Congolese population, 70% of the population depends on agriculture for their living.
Donc le réchauffement climatique présente un danger énorme par rapport en ce qui concerne la population.
That is why the climate change is a very big, a crucial problem for the population which is dependent on agriculture.
Mais étant un pays en manque d'infrastructures, en
Being a
manque de
country
développement,
which lacks infrastructure and development,
pour faire face à ces changements climatiques, la République démocratique du Congo a besoin d'un financement extérieur.
for facing the climate change, the crucial problem of climate change, DRC is in need of fundings.
Afin de développer des infrastructures vertes, en ce qui concerne l'eau, l'énergie et les transports,
In order to build infrastructure that helps in this, the management of water,
cela lui permettra de continuer à conserver ses forêts.
it will help us to conserve our forests.
Ces forêts qui jouent un rôle primordial dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques.
Forests which help us to, play a vital role in helping us fight the climate change.
Mais qu'en est-il réellement de ces financements climatiques? Qu'en est-il réellement de ces financements climatiques?
But what is actually these financial climate?
Il faut noter déjà qu'en ce qui concerne les bailleurs des fonds, parce qu'il faut savoir que à Paris en 2009, les pollueurs, les grands pollueurs avaient décidé de chercher des financements pour certains pays.
In 2009 Paris, there were the creditors, the lenders were searching for paying these countries.
Ces pays développés, effectivement, mobilisent des fonds importants par rapport au changement climatique.
These developed countries definitely do give funds for helping the nations which are developing.
Mais malheureusement, à ce jour, la République démocratique du Congo n'en bénéficie pratiquement pas.
But sadly, at present, the Democratic Republic of Congo does not really receive the benefits of these fundings.
En 2025, par exemple, le pays a reçu 19 millions pour les efforts de réduction des déforestations.
In 2005, for example, the country had received
Des déforestations.
for deforestation.
OK, parce que ce qu'il faut comprendre ici, c'est que nous sommes dans une situation
Because it is important to understand here that we are in a situation
où nous avons un pays qui a besoin de se développer par rapport à ses forêts, à ses ressources,
Because we are a country which has the need to develop through its forests and through its mineral resources.
Mais de l'autre côté, on a besoin de garder ces ressources intactes car elles luttent contre les changements climatiques.
And at the same time, we need to keep these resources intact because they would help us in fighting climate change.
Alors, par rapport à ça, il faut une compensation financière des bailleurs extérieurs.
And for this, we need the fundings of exterior places.
Mais malheureusement, ces financements ne suivent pas.
But sadly, these fundings are not enough.
Alors que la population a besoin de vivre aussi.
While the population has the need to keep living, live also.
La République démocratique du Congo a besoin, dans son développement, de faire vivre toute sa population riveraine qui ne vit qu'en grande partie de ses forêts et de ses ressources minières.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has to take care of its population, which is largely dependent on its forests and mineral resources.
Mais par rapport à la lutte contre les changements climatiques, elle ne peut pas faire tout ce qu'elle veut par rapport à ça parce qu'il faut protéger les forêts, il faut protéger les tourbières.
But given the situation of climate change, the Democratic Republic of Congo is not able to keep this intact because it also needs to keep intact its forests and the peatlands.
On l'impose de ne pas toucher à ces forêts, mais on ne lui donne pas le moyen financier nécessaire pour lui permettre de développer des énergies vertes pour faire vivre sa population.
We are told to keep intact these forests and mineral resources, but at the same time, we are not given the opportunity and the funds to substitute to green energy resources.
C'est ainsi qu'aujourd'hui, on considère que la République démocratique du Congo est en train de vivre une injustice climatique.
And that is why I'm forced to say that the DRC is today living in a climate injustice.
Parce qu'on lui impose des choses, on lui impose par la communauté internationale des choses, alors qu'en principe, la compensation devait être une compensation financière lui permettant de développer certaines autres stratégies
Because we
de survie.
force them the laws, and at the same time, we do not give them the opportunity to develop, accept these conditions.
C'est vrai que pour ça, il faut mettre des stratégies en place.
It's important that for this we start the strategies and implement the strategies.
C'est pourquoi de plus en plus, depuis quelques temps, il y a beaucoup de plaidoyers qui se font
And it is for this reason that from a long time now, there are many organizations which are formed
afin de revendiquer plus fermement une compensation financière à la hauteur de la contribution écologique du Congo.
in order to develop fundings and financements for the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Si je dois donner un exemple, je vais vous dire par exemple en ce qui concerne la tonne de carbone du Congo se vend à $5.
For example,
La tonne du carbone
the carbon dump
se vend à $5.
is $5.
C'est comme ça que de plus en plus, il y a des plaidoyers pour que cette tonne-là puisse se vendre à $100.
So that this tonne of carbon can be sold at $100.
Pour une autre recommandation, c'est soutenir le projet pétrolier dans le respect de l'environnement et de la biodiversité.
Another step can be the developing of the capacity to elaborate ambitious and profitable projects.
Parce qu'il est bien de parler de la justice climatique, mais s'il n'y a pas une compensation financière, ça sera difficile, il y aura certainement un véritable problème d'équité.
Because although we speak of climate justice, but in these situations it is difficult to really talk about and implement it.
C'est pourquoi, en conclusion,
That is why, for concluding,
il est certes vrai que la justice climatique inclut le droit à un environnement sain,
it is true that the climate justice includes the right to a healthy environment,
mais elle devra aussi inclure l'équité dans la répartition des risques et des ressources.
but it should also include fairness in the distribution of risks and resources,
Elle devra prendre en compte aussi la protection des droits humains.
and should also take in account the protection of human rights.
Cela implique aussi
It is only possible
la reconnaissance des responsabilités, des responsabilités différenciées entre pays,
this also implies that the recognition of differentiated responsibilities among countries
selon leur contribution aux problèmes climatiques.
according to their problem and contribution in climatic problems.
Sinon, ça sera toujours une injustice climatique.
If not, it will always be a climate injustice.
Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Shireen, for for presenting a deep analysis of the climate issues which are being faced by the Republic of Congo and the issue of climate finance also which is being faced there. Now I would request Mr. Adil Fakir, Board Member, Emirates Association of Lawyer and Legal, to express his views.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests of the second Legal Summit of New Delhi, Rule of the Law. I will not get long of the time, and what's already was discussed and explained from my colleagues here on the stand, it's more valuable. Honor to privilege here stand off from before you on this beautiful organization and gathering, and specialty invitation from Bar Association of India, and specialty of our brothers, President Prashant Kumar and his nice organization team. I came from United Arab Emirates. We are Emirate Association for Lawyers and Legals. Our slogan, our association slogan, is sharing everyone towards globality. So from this stand, we are communicating and continuously to complete whatever others start with it. And I will try to link, and from here, with Mr. Sham Divan, what he start with framework, and he was suggest on it. So we need that kind of framework and his suggestion to continue together and move forward. And same as Mr. Professor Jorg, what he mentioned, we are not saying north or south or east or west. We are all in one goal, so we have to move forward on it. So based of the climate changes, our association, there is many committees and teamwork, several aspects, including climate changes. From this word or from this topic, my speech generally will be very short about climate changes in based of UAE law. Based of them goal, our path to a sustainable future. I can't speak from here long time, but I keep it short and at the point. Climate change is not a distant threat. It's a shaping weather patterns, was availability, health, and viability of our communities. The UAE already shown remarkable leadership in recognition and reality of that, while supporting resilience economy, and main example what was done during COP28 in Dubai. Everyone knows COP29, it starts in Azerbaijan, and COP30 will be in Brazil during November. From COP28 in Dubai, this is a cornerstone of the UAE Clean Energy Strategy 2050 and related program to seek and have sustainable share of energy come from clean source of mind century. The United Arab Emirates, after COP28, they issued a federal law number 11 of 2024 on mitigating the effect of climate change, and it was effect and came in force just recently, end of May 2025. The law aims to strengthen and the country's commitment to achieving climate neutrality by 2050. What makes climate action real here in UAE or globalism, it's not just ambition, it is the daily works of policy. Even our law firms, offices, companies, shops, so that's give an idea and think there is a regulation, there is a penalty if you did not do that, if you did not do this. So you have to think and study properly about recycle for so many things what we are human use it by daily. From here, I will say thank you for everyone for attention and look forward to our discussion today, and thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Adil Fakir, for the focused address. And the sum total of this session is that all the inhabitants of this planet, all the countries, everybody is affected by the climate change. Therefore, the collective effort is required to ensure that the adverse effect of the climate change is minimized, and those who really need the assistance to deal with the effect of the climate change, they get the assistance and effective assistance. And the courts, lawyers, all the professionals who are present here, whatever they can contribute in this process, they should. So with this, we can conclude this session because there is hardly any time left for the question answers. Thank you very much.
Friends, we will have the next session on